Hello everyone, and welcome back to a Let's Play of The Wolf Among Us, with your host Invalid. This is going to be an intermission episode. During our playthrough of the first episode, we unlocked a lot of extras in the name of Book of Fables, and entries therein, by interacting with different characters and whatnot. So, I'm gonna take the time here to look at the Book of Fables and talk a little bit about what's happened between the first episode playthrough and now. And there's been a lot. Yeah, let's open up the Book of Fables and see what we got. Oh my goodness. Holy cow. Okay, so these are different characters that we can interact with at any given time. Good to know. And I guess we got a sort of dossier on them. Let's go ahead and check out Digby Wolf. The renowned big-bagged wolf. He's known for tormenting pigs and girls in red hoods, but is trying to put those dark days behind him. Digby now acts as Fabletown sheriff, and remains in his human form. Mostly. However, due to his rough past, the citizens of Fabletown are slow to trust him. Digby is determined to show that he's truly changed, but some instincts are just too hard to control. Which is perfect for my segue into what happened. I actually, for those of you who don't know, this game series is actually based on a 150 issue comic strip called Fables. And every single one of these characters that we are looking at here, they are all fables. And they are all from different fairy tales. Some of them are very prominent characters and show up in different fairy tales and fables and whatnot. And some of them are different. Some of them have been merged into one, like Digby Wolf. Others have one story, and there's actually one character that I don't know if we're going to see in this game or not, probably, but we'll see, who came out of an itty-bitty verse, a nursery rhyme, nothing more than that. And he ends up being a pretty prominent character in the series, in the comic strip anyway. But yeah. Snow White, assistant to the deputy mayor. Snow White may seem cold, but this stems from her life of mistreatment and abuse back in the homelands. After escaping assault and imprisonment, not to mention an attempt on her life, she married Prince Charming. It wasn't long before Snow discovered that Charming cheated on her with her estranged sister, Rose Red, and she divorced him. After the Exodus, Snow focused her attention on setting up a safe haven for fables in the New World. She now serves as assistant to the deputy mayor of Fabletown. That is perfect for the setting of this game. Basically, there are a bunch in the Fabletown comic strip. Every single fable and groups of fables, if you will, have their own worlds that they come from. And each of these worlds is totally different, but they all have portals linking them to other worlds. and it just so happens that they all link to Earth. However, with the Fable worlds, at some point, there is an entity, which I can't remember the name of. It starts with an A, I think. It'll come to me in this part, but essentially, massive armies came through and took up those who were willing to fight with this figure's armies, and it killed anyone who was resistant, and those who managed to escape with their lives in a lot of cases fled in something called the Exodus, and they ended up in various places on the human world as a last means of asylum, essentially. Earth ends up being the only planet, the only world, where there's not quote-unquote magic, in the sense of the fables. All these fables are imbued with magic, by the way. That's very prominent in the series, and in this game, I'm sure. But some details on that. The Woodsman, fallen hero. The Woodsman is one of the few men who went toe-to-toe with Digby in his Black Forest days and lived to tell the tale. In an attempt to save Little Red Riding Hood, he split the great wolf's belly open with his axe, filled him full of rocks, and threw the beast into a river. To his dismay, his popularity has faded. Even his name is forgotten, and he is only known as the Woodsman. I kind of wonder what happens to this guy. In this series. For those of you that don't know, this game was based on the Fables series, and then the Wolf Among Us comic strip was actually made after this game was made. So it's more or less a continuation that's considered canon, by the way, that is added on to the entire series of Fables. The entirety of this game and the comic that's based on it, pretty darn accurately, I'll say. I've only read up to the first part where it's to the end of where the first episode in this game ends. So I don't know any spoilers or anything like that. But this entire game is a prequel to the Fables series. The Fables series takes place around turn of the century, 2000s and beyond, I'm fairly sure. This game takes place 1970s-ish, something around there. So giving a little more context on setting. Faith, Donkey Skin Girl, also known as Ass Girl. Bloody bodkin. Faith, otherwise known as the Donkey Skin Girl, made it through the exodus from the magical homelands with the clothes on her back, her husband, and nothing else. She was once a beautiful princess, happily married to Prince Lawrence of a neighboring kingdom. Her life should have been a happy ending, but the mundane city of New York wasn't kind to her or her marriage. With no money, Faith found herself turning tricks to make the rent for a cheap apartment on the outskirts of Fabletown. She had a difficult life, but she did what she could to survive in an unfamiliar world. So something else about the Exodus. This is kind of a given when you have a massive invasion. But a lot of the fables that escaped made it out with little more than what happened with Faith. The clothes on their back and maybe a partner or a friend. A lot of fables didn't even have that coming out of it. You know, they escaped with their lives. There are a few, however, that did manage to keep their access to their wealth. and I'm sure we will read about them in these short little bios. Beauty, the caring wife. Beauty and her husband Beast once lived in an enchanted castle, but they were forced to flee the homelands in the Exodus, leaving all of their wealth behind. Now they live in a modest studio in Fabletown, New York. Though times are hard, with Beast working multiple jobs to pay the bills, the couple have the longest-lasting relationship of all the Fables. Touching back on the Fables point, with the magic, Fables are not quite immortal, but they have an ostensibly longer lifespan. Incredibly long lifespan compared to humans. Many of these fables have seen at least a century and still pretty much look like this. They do not age fast. But that's just how time is relative in all of the worlds. So time on Earth for most of these fables is much longer than back on their home planet, back on their home world. So what would be a normal lifespan for them is centuries of lifespan for humans. Or in some cases it's the opposite, where a lifespan for humans is long compared to some of the fables that show up in the series. Possibly. They don't talk about those ones much. Yeah. So, interesting quirks in the series. Beast, concerned husband. Beast and his wife Beauty left everything behind when they escaped the homelands in the Exodus. Without his former wealth, Beast must pick up extra work to make ends meet. He is able to get around Fabletown without a glamour most of the time, but if Beauty gets too angry with him, he becomes more beastly by the minute, growing horns and large teeth. Despite the occasional bickering, the two are truly in love, and have the longest lasting relationship of anyone in Fabletown. This is very true. And by the end of the Fables series, they are still together. Mr. Toad, the slumlord. Mr. Toad is the superintendent for a defunct tenement on the edge of Fabletown proper. Because he's a 3.5-foot walking amphibian, Toad is required by Fabletown law to keep his family and himself magically glamoured to appear human. The problem is, Toad isn't too concerned with what the law is and has to be reminded often. Ain't that the truth? So, I won't say anything about that quite yet. I was going to talk about the glamour, but I think I'll wait on that bit. I really like the character of Toad in this game, just to say that. I like his design and everything. I'm not so hot on his personality, but... Colin, couch surfer. Colin is better known as one of the 3 little pigs. Back in the homelands, they were harassed by the big bad wolf, who blew down Colin's house of straw. After the Exodus, Colin and the other fables who couldn't pass for human were sent to live at the farm in upstate New York. Unable to stand such a boring life, Colin constantly makes trips down to Fabletown to bother Digby. He is always caught and sent back to the farm, but he doesn't let that stop him. So, in brief, the farm, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a many-acre plot of land, owned, quote-unquote, by Fabletown, which is the asylum for all of the fables that have come onto planet Earth and ended up kind of in the North American continent. It's one of many centers for fables to congregate and live and coexist with other fables and not have to blend in so much with human society. The farm is specifically for fables who either do not want to deal with human society, have been for one reason or another, forced to live on the farm because of risks of exposing the fables themselves, or just don't look human. And Colin is very clearly one of those fables that does not look human. So yeah. Ichabod Crane, Deputy Mayor of Fabletown and Scumlord. I actually don't know yet. Hailing from the haunted town of Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod Crane has been Deputy Mayor of Fabletown for nearly 115 years. Crane is a bundle of nerves and takes his job very seriously. Although that doesn't mean he always does it well. As one of Fabletown's elite, Crane is often blind to the troubles of the less well-off citizens. Overall, Crane is authoritarian, cowardly, and always hiding something. Like a love affair with a massage lady. So yeah, this is touching on the very long lifespan of many of these fables and some of the wealth that a few fortunate fables were able to take with them. And Ichabod Crane is not any more heroic or anything like that in later parts of the Fable series in the comics. Busking, the Fabletown librarian. Busking is the talking winged monkey from the land of Oz. Now, as Fabletown's librarian, he spends his time reading and stealing the deputy mayor's booze. He's prone to mischief, so when something goes wrong, he assumes he'll receive the lion's share of the blame. He's helpful when he wants to be, but most of the time he'd rather be drinking. Someone would have fired him a long time ago, but he's the only one who can make sense of the filing system. Oh my goodness. So another piece of lore to give you guys a little spin on. You may recognize the town hall, quote unquote, as being rather large for being behind an office door. This links into a lot of the connections with wealth that some of the more fortunate fables have. Essentially what it is, there are magic spells that connect certain doorways to portals that lead to other doorways and rooms in various fable worlds that connect that specific room with that specific office door or bedroom door or whatever have you. Hence why you can have obscenely large spaces in what would otherwise be a very cramped location. So you get some of that impossibly large geometry on the inside, and then itty-bitty tent on the outside, like what you have in Harry Potter. Fabletown, home of the fables. Fabletown is a community located on Bullfinch Street in Manhattan's Upper West Side. To regular people, or Mundis, it appears to be an ordinary New York neighborhood. But it is really the home of fables from many worlds, and within the business office at the Woodlands lies a massive cavern, a vast library, and hundreds of magical items of immense power. All non-human fables live upstate on the farm, an extension of Fabletown. Yep. And it's not just behavior of the residents of Fabletown either. Some of it is a little more mystic than that, shall we say. The farm. Oh, they're talking about locations too. Blah. The farm is home to fables who cannot pass as human. Giants, goblins, animals, etc. It is located in upstate New York, far enough away from the Mundis to avoid detection. Some of its residents resent their confinement to the farm, despite its size and comforts. To them, the farm is a prison. They would be allowed to leave the farm if they could purchase a glamour, but many don't have the money for something so expensive. Though some, like Colin, sneak out into the city anyway. Mundis, non-fables. Short for mundane, Mundi is a catch-all term that fables use to refer to the non-magical inhabitants of their adopted home. Warding spells placed around the blocks of Fabletown and the farm keep their minds distracted and dull within certain boundaries. However, if anyone should pique the curiosity or scrutiny of a large group of Mundis, these magical protection charms would overload and fail. As Sheriff of Fabletown, one of Digby's primary functions is ensuring the Fabletown community maintains a low profile. Glamours. Disguise spell. Glamours are spells that allow the user to change their appearance. They are expensive, but can be purchased by non-human fables in order to pass for human among the Mundis. Cheap glamours can be found in the seedier parts of Fabletown, but they are often unreliable and prone to sudden failure. Prince Lawrence. After escaping the homelands, Prince Lawrence and his wife, Faith, immediately fell victim to the harsh realities of the mundane world. They moved to New York, hoping to find aid in a community of fellow fables, but without enough money to live in Fabletown, they had to settle on an apartment on the outskirts of the neighborhood. Unfortunately, that meant they were out of sight and out of mind when it came to government assistance. Their prospects dwindling, Faith left Lawrence to try to make it on her own. And now, without his wife for support, Lawrence struggles to motivate himself and quickly sinks into depression. I unfortunately found this out after the fact, as many of you know, but if you go to Prince Lawrence's place of residence first, you can actually save his life. Going to Toad's apartment first does dick all in changing what goes on at Mr. Toad's, and unfortunately it leaves Prince Lawrence rather dead. Unfortunate, to be sure. But we made the choice we made, and we'll have to live with it. The Tweedles, hired goons. The Tweedle Brothers, Dumb and Dee, are thugs for hire. They appear human, allowing them to carry out their contracts in the Mundi world without drawing suspicion. They are as inseparable as they are ruthless. Not a whole lot to say there, except from the fact that they seem to be dicks. Holly, Trip Trap owner. Holly is a no-nonsense kind of troll, and the owner of the Trip Trap bar. She's glamoured to appear human, but her patrons know better. Holly takes good care of her regulars. Often the downtrodden fables with little to spare, but she has no patience for the Fabletown government that has done nothing to locate her missing sister. Grendel, a drifter. Grendel just wants to be left alone. In the old days, he terrorized Norse mead halls, but lately he can be found occupying a stool in various quiet, dumpy bars around New York. He hates the noise of the city, but must work there to afford his glamour. Despite his gruff bearing, he's fiercely loyal to those who've learned to offer him the space and silence he desires. Talking to him is like watching a time clock tick down. It's only a matter of time. Bluebeard! I now know way more about this character than I thought I ever would. And all we saw of him in the first episode was a dossier. A wealthy scoundrel. Bluebeard managed to escape the homelands with his riches intact, and continues to be one of the wealthiest fables in New York. The Fabletown government depends on his generous contributions, and he often uses this influence for his own benefit. As a former serial killer of multiple wives, He claims his days of decapitating his brides are over. But even if he was able to leave his violent ways in the homelands, that hasn't stopped him from making the occasional trip down Crooked Lane. So one of the things that happens with Fabletown is that there is a Fabletown pact. And one of the constituents of that pact, as my voice goes into falsetto by jumping way too many octaves, breaking everybody's eardrums, including my own, and my voice. One of the constituents of that pact is that fable, every fable who signs that pact, is instantly forgiven for their past crimes, no matter how heinous, no matter what they were. It is forgotten and forgiven in law. As we have seen in the game, and as anyone who's read the comic strip will know, or comic book series, I should say, that's not necessarily the case in the hearts and minds of the residents of Fabletown. So many people still fear Bluebeard. Many people still fear Digby Wolf because of the atrocities that they've committed in their past lives. But some are forgiven more than others. And it's not always fair as to how that goes. Anyway. Digby's mercy. In the days leading up to the Exodus, the big bad wolf hunted armies of men and goblins in the Black Forest. These invading forces had driven off the great beast's preferred quarry, and their own flesh was rotten with corruption. Hardly a suitable replacement. He made it his game to destroy their camps, devour their night watchmen, and disrupt their supply trains while sparing their prisoners. One day, he broke their ranks and discovered a particular woman they held captive. Her skin was white as snow, but her hair was dark as the night sky. He approached her, and she, knowing no sword could match the giant wolf's power, bravely placed her shackles in the beast's mouth. He freed her, but years would pass before the two met again in the Mundi world. Little fun fact about Digby Wolf. One of the things of being a big bad wolf is that you have incredibly strong senses. So you know how he's always lighting up a cigarette? He's actually doing that in an attempt to drown out all of the scents in New York City. And there are many to be taken in. So that's why he's always got a pack of cigs on him. And a lighter. But there's one particular scent that he can't quite ever block out. I'll leave you guys to guess what that is. So we're missing one entry right here, and I'm not sure what that is, but I guess we'll have to play through again to find out. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this little intermission, and hope you enjoyed. Until the next video, everyone, have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye for now.